In this documentary, we will be discussing the involvement of parents under IDEA. We will be talking about the legal requirements under parental rights and the rights of children with disabilities. We will also be discussing the challenges parents and the school districts might be facing currently and in past cases, as well as give recommendations to parents who want to become advocates and schools who want to encourage advocacy for their parents. Keep on watching. Congress once believed that access to free, appropriate public education for students with disabilities was dependent partially on their parents' advocacy skills on the child's behalf. One of the purposes of EAHCA was to ensure that parents would have procedural safeguards in place to protect the rights under free, appropriate public education for each student with disabilities. The federal regulations for IDEA 2004 include a section called Subpart E, Procedural Safeguards. These safeguards are designed to protect the rights of parents and their children with disability. At the same time, it provides the families and school systems mechanisms by which to resolve their disputes. It is important to note that each state has their own laws and regulations. Under DESE, Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, a bill was created, Bill 2807, that regards parent involvement. The first note on this bill is the consent of the parent. In accordance with state and federal law, each school district shall obtain informed parental consent as follows. There should be parental consent for initial evaluations or placements of a student under a special education program. Consent needs to be initiated before evaluation services are extended, and a parent has the right to revoke consent at any time, except in the case for an initial evaluation or initial placement. In this case, the parent has the right to observe any programs proposed to their child. At the age of 18, a student is now responsible for their decision making, meaning that it is the student's choice that prevails at any time that a disagreement occurs. That is, unless the student chooses to delegate continued decision making to his or her parent. Communication from the school district to parents and students is to the utmost importance. All communication and meetings shall ensure that the following standards are met. Communication shall be simple and commonly understood between mutual parties. The communication shall be in both English and the primary language at home. If an interpreter is needed, an interpreter is provided. In the case that a parent or student is unable to read in any language or are blind or deaf, communication is to be orally translated using a foreign language interpreter. In support to communication, parents are also given the right to a written progress report dating the student's progress over time. Some parents choose to limit their participation in making decisions about their children's program. Some other parents continue to find their efforts to participate blocked as a result of barriers they encounter in the decision-making process. What are some of these barriers, you may ask? Well, let's come along to name just a few. Take the second to reflect. Can you think of any of the laws that we just addressed in the last few minutes? For some parents, it's really hard to learn and understand these laws which support their children to properly defend and advocate for their child's needs. The complexity of the law can make it difficult for families to fully understand all their rights or the rights of their children, so as to effectively act as advocates and partners during the evaluation or service provision decision-making process. So could you do it? Could you think back and name any of the laws we addressed prior? Well, the law states it's in the right of parents to receive a complete explanation of all the procedural safeguards available under IDEA and the procedures in the state for representing complaints. Schools would agree that it is at the parent's request that the school can provide the opportunity for the explanation of the laws under IDEA, and that without the initiative from the parent, the school is not required to make any additional initiatives to inform the parents with information outside of what is represented during the IEP meeting, referral, or evaluation. Parents would agree that another barrier is communication. Cultural or linguistic differences can limit communication and make a parent feel unwelcome. Extended jargon during the IEP meeting can confuse parents and further limit their understanding of the IEP process. It is in the school and IEP team's commitment to keep parents informed. Unfortunately, sometimes there is a failure to properly communicate with parents, and this can cause several other challenges, including parents feeling left out in the partnership. School districts would argue that in order to establish a partnership, communication must be reciprocated by both the parent and school personnel. Schools would advocate that their teachers manage so much, finding the time to communicate can be difficult, but teachers try their best to communicate often and well. What you are about to watch is a clip from an episode from Teachers for TV Land, in which a teacher is in a parent-teacher conference with very passionate advocate parents. Let's get started.
I'm actually a psychiatrist. I'm a PhD. Are you a PhD? How high up did you go in?
I have a college degree.
Oh, you're like Jim. Jim only has a master's. So let me just share that. I think, excuse me, and I'm just going to actually give you a little bit of a progress report.
You can talk.
I'm thinking maybe that if you were kinder and able to reach out, maybe the students wouldn't see you as untrustworthy. Listen, I think what might need to happen here is that we talk to your principal and have Frederick put into a more advanced teacher's class. I think to have him challenged would be great and exciting for him as a boy, as a prospective man. I think maybe you're not intelligent enough to handle someone who knows how to draw out a student.
I want you to stop right there. I'm sorry, you're being so incredibly rude. That is inappropriate. Maybe your son can't speak up because he doesn't get a chance to talk, and so therefore he has no identity. Who is he? Who is Frederick? Who knows?
Whoa, is this how you expected the conversation to go? Thinking about the teacher and the parents, how could they have handled this conversation differently in order to build a partnership of trust and respect?
I am here to help.
Are you going to say anything?
I'd agree with that.
And lastly, parents struggle finding their role in IEP meetings and in the implementation process. They feel as though there is a lack of awareness of IEP goals and interventions for their student, which then leads to lack of confidence in implementing at home. Setting high expectations in the home setting can also be difficult. Schools would advocate that teachers and school personnel provide the support and services to the maximum extent possible in the school setting. The need for training parents for implementation at home is necessary, but often can be proven difficult. I believe both parents and school personnel would agree that implementation at home is a multifaceted step which requires training, communication, and the establishing of a strong relationship between the school and home. In conclusion of this documentary, I would like to provide recommendations for parents and teachers who are looking to be advocates for their students, working together to create a strong, trusting relationship. These recommendations sum themselves up in 3 words: train, encourage, and involve. Teachers in school districts all around us would benefit from training in family partnerships, learning how to communicate with parents, how to engage in their cultural differences, and how to provide them access to their children's learning space and environment. The school's efforts to provide meaningful experiences and tools to encourage parents' confidence in the IEP process and meetings can be found right here, where an author has linked various tools that partnerships can use to encourage parents along the way of the IEP meeting and process. The article highlights how to build team culture in a way that parents feel they have an active role and participation in the IEP process and their students' learning. Lastly, involve your parents in activities that happen throughout the school year, in your classroom, but as well as in the school calendar. Make sure that they understand that your school is inclusive of all learners and that you are working to make sure that everyone is open to participation in your classroom. Encourage them by having them come to an event in your classroom, have them teach students in your midst, and also have them come in and talk about any area that they feel they are experts in. I do not reserve the rights to any of the images or stock footage used in the making of this documentary.